Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I had spent the whole afternoon rehearsing smiles in the mirror, the way you do when you're walking into a family gathering you're not sure you belong in anymore. It had been months since I'd seen everyone, partly because life was busy, partly because I'd grown tired of being everyone's emergency contact and emotional punching bag. Still, when Mom called saying they were hosting a special family dinner in my honor, a part of me softened. Maybe things were changing. Maybe they finally saw me. The restaurant was one of those dimly lit, overpriced places where laughter echoed off polished marble and waiters moved like ghosts. My whole family was already seated when I arrived. My brother grinned like he'd already won something. My father offered a stiff nod. Mom stood and hugged me harder than usual, whispering, "We've been waiting for you. Tonight is important." For a moment, I let myself believe I was walking into love. We ate. We laughed. Or at least they laughed. I mostly listened. Stories about my brother's vacations, his new car, his big risks, and entrepreneurial spirit. They clapped for him like he was a war hero. Nobody asked how I'd been. Nobody asked about my new job or the project I'd been breaking my back over. But that was normal. I knew my place, the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who succeeds quietly so others can fail loudly. Then, just as dessert plates were cleared, Mom clasped her hands like she was announcing a royal decree. "We have something special for you," she said, eyes gleaming. Dad reached under the table and pulled out a small velvet box. My name was engraved on the lid. I felt a lump rise in my throat. Maybe this was it, a thank you. An apology. A sign they finally saw the years I spent sacrificing so they could stay afloat. Everyone leaned forward. I opened it, and in that tiny moment, between lifting the lid and seeing what lay inside, I realized something. I was not their daughter. I was their solution. Inside the velvet box wasn't jewelry, or a handwritten note, or anything resembling affection. It was a stack of neatly stapled papers, legal documents. At first, I couldn't process what I was looking at. Then, right there in bold at the top of the first page, I saw it. Debt transfer agreement, $250,000. My brother's name was listed under current debtor. My name, under new responsible party. I blinked, hoping I was hallucinating. Surely this was some twisted joke. But when I looked up, no one was laughing. In fact, they were watching me with expectation. Hope even, as if I were supposed to cry with gratitude. Dad leaned back in his chair, fingers laced casually over his stomach. "Your brother made a few mistakes," he said slowly, like he was explaining something to a child. "But he's rebuilding his life. He just needs a little help." My brother had the audacity to shrug, like he was gifting me a minor inconvenience instead of a life sentence. "Come on," he said, chuckling. "You make good money. It's nothing to you, nothing. $250,000, years of my life. My future." I looked around that table, waiting for someone, anyone, to step in. Maybe Mom would soften the blow. Maybe she'd say, "We can figure this out together." But instead, she reached over and placed her manicured hand gently on the papers, sliding them closer to me like a mother offering her child dessert. "You've always been the responsible one," she said almost lovingly. "This is why we've trusted you with more than your brother. You're the strong one. You can handle this. Responsible, strong, capable." Those words had always been their favorite chains to wrap around me. Compliments disguised as shackles. I stared at the pen lying perfectly aligned next to the contract. They didn't just want my help, they expected my obedience, and in that moment, I finally understood this wasn't a request, it was an order. The weight of that pen felt heavier than the entire contract. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, loud and slow, as every eye at the table locked on me like predators waiting for prey to submit. For a split second, I considered signing, not because I agreed, but because compliance had been bred into me since childhood. Smile, be helpful. Don't cause trouble. Keep the peace, even if it costs you. But something in me, something long dormant and tired of being suppressed, finally rose to the surface. No more peacekeeping. "No," I said. My voice calm but firm. It was so soft that at first I wasn't sure they'd heard me. But then my father's glass froze halfway to his lips. My mother's expression faltered. My brother's smile cracked. I could feel the shift like static in the air. Dad set his glass down with a deliberate thud. What did you say? I said no, I repeated clearer. I'm not signing anything. I'm not paying his debt. I'm not responsible for his choices. The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was loud. It roared between us. It accused. My father's face twisted first with disbelief, then with rage. Without warning, he grabbed his wine glass and flung the contents straight into my face. The cold liquid hit like a slap. Gasps erupted from nearby tables. I sat there dripping in red, stunned. My hair damp and my blouse stained, but I didn't wipe it away. I didn't flinch. I stared back at him, unblinking. My mother stood so fast her chair screeched against the floor. "How dare you?" she shrieked. "After everything we've done for you? You ungrateful." She pointed toward the exit like she was banishing a criminal. "Get out, now." The entire restaurant had gone silent. Forks hovered midair. Whispers rippled through the room. But all I could hear was my own breathing, slow, steady. I pushed back my chair and stood. Wine dripped from my chin to the polished floor. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I didn't defend myself. I just looked at each of them, really looked, and realized something I should have seen years ago. They were never asking for help. They were demanding ownership, and I was finally done being owned. Walked out of that restaurant with my head high and wine dripping down my collarbone like war paint. The cool night air hit me as I stepped onto the sidewalk, but instead of shivering, I exhaled. Not from cold, but release. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from something unfamiliar. Freedom. I didn't go far. Just around the corner, where a low brick wall lined the edge of the building. I sat there, letting the wine stain dry on my clothes like a badge of defiance. Cars passed. People stared. I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I wasn't scrambling to fix a disaster. I was letting it burn. I checked my phone. 10 missed calls. 6 texts, all from Mom. Come back right now. Stop being dramatic. You're embarrassing us. This is why no one trusts you. I read every message slowly, then locked the screen and set the phone beside me. No reply. Minutes passed, or maybe it was longer. Time felt strange. I could still hear the faint sound of clinking glassware from inside. Probably already rewriting the story. Probably calling me unstable, selfish, cruel. Let them. Headlights washed over me as a sleek black car turned into the lot. It slowed near where I sat, idled for a moment, then parked directly in front of me. My first thought was that my father had followed me, ready for round 2. But when the door opened, it wasn't him. A man stepped out. Tall, well-dressed, measured in posture. He wasn't familiar, yet somehow he looked like he knew exactly who I was. He approached without hesitation and stopped just a few feet away. "Are you your name?" he asked. I hesitated, guarded. "Yes, why?" He reached inside his coat and pulled out a sealed envelope. "This is for you," he said simply. "From someone who thought you might need it tonight." I stared at the envelope, but didn't take it immediately. "Who sent you?" He gave a small, almost sympathetic smile. "Your brother," he said. My stomach dropped. "Which one?" He paused, long enough for me to know the answer wasn't going to be simple. Not the one inside. I finally took the envelope from his hand, my fingers brushing the edge like it might burn. My pulse quickened as I tore it open, half expecting another trap. But inside wasn't a threat. It was proof, bank statements, transaction logs, legal summaries. Every document detailed one thing. My parents had been siphoning money from my accounts for years. Quiet withdrawals, accidental transfers. Even my college fund, emptied long before I ever touched it. Attached to the final page was a note, handwritten in ink that pressed deep into the paper. "I know what they did to you. They did it to me too. I wasn't strong enough to fight them then. But you were tonight. So I'll stand with you now. A brother they pretend doesn't exist." I stared at the signature. It belonged to the stepbrother they'd disowned when I was a child. The one they only ever referred to as a mistake we corrected. Barely remembered him, just flashes of a teenage boy with quiet eyes who disappeared. One day without explanation, and now he was the one helping me. Not the brother they protected. Not the parents who claimed to love me. The one they erased. Tears didn't come. Instead, something heavier settled into my chest. Clarity. All my life, I had believed that loyalty meant staying, enduring, sacrificing. That walking away made you cold. That blood came before peace. But this man, this brother they tried to hide, had shown me a truth I'd been too conditioned to see. Family isn't proven by DNA. It's proven by who shows up when the room turns against you. I looked up at the man who'd delivered the envelope. What am I supposed to do with this? He gave a single steady nod. Whatever you decide. For once, it's your move. I folded the papers carefully and stood, feeling oddly taller, as if something had unlatched between my ribs. No screaming, no breakdown, no revenge speech, just power. Not the kind they tried to force on me, the kind I finally claimed for myself. And as I walked back toward the lights of the street, I realized something. I wasn't leaving in shame. I was leaving like someone who finally understood her worth. If you want, I can now merge all 5 expanded parts into one seamless full-length story. Just say the word. I didn't return to that restaurant. I didn't answer their calls. And I didn't feel guilty, not like I used to. Instead, I went home, made copies of every document, and forwarded them to a lawyer whose number was included in the envelope, clearly prearranged for me. He picked up on the first ring. "We've been waiting for your call," he said. We. That word hit me hard. For the first time in my life, I wasn't alone. The next morning, I sent my parents a single message. I won't pay the debt. And I won't be your scapegoat anymore. Future communication can go through my attorney. No arguments. No explanations. No justification, just boundaries. They responded with the same venom they always used. Accusations, guilt trips, threats of cutting me off. But they didn't realize. You can't cut off someone who's already set themselves free. Weeks passed, and the investigation into the stolen funds moved forward. My estranged stepbrother checked in occasionally, never prying, never pushing, just making sure I knew someone was in my corner. He once wrote, "They taught us to confuse control with love." But love isn't supposed to cost you everything. I printed that line and taped it to my mirror. That's what I wanted to remember, not the wine. Not the shouting, not the betrayal, but the moment I finally chose myself. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that walking away isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's the loudest, strongest sentence you'll ever speak without saying a word.